making, sometimes like you find like characters that really stand out and become this like happy surprise in the story. And Scratte was one of them.
Scratte was one of the characters that we developed for Ice Age 1, and it came from a need to find an opening sequence for the movie. So we went through Peter's drawings, and there it was. We added the saber teeth, and we gave him an acorn, and this whole issue was born.
And that's when the idea of that glacier sequence became the opening of the movie. Very simple storyline, no dialogue, just having this little character just run for his life with the one thing in mind, the nut. People just loved it.
Everybody who saw that sequence just could so identify with this poor little guy that he just got a life of his own, and we just ended up using him throughout all 3 movies.
Scratte sequences are a dream in a way because it is pure animation, just to have fun and do slapstick and not be tied down by dialogue. But after 3 movies, it does get challenging because it's okay, what have we not done with this guy?
The most important thing in the Scratte's universe is his acorn. That's all he cares about. And writers came up with something brilliant by coming up with the one thing they could possibly compete with that, and that's Scratte.
Scratte is the perfect foil because she's beautiful, she's cunning, she's everything that he isn't.
When I was designing Scratte, I knew she had to be the opposite of Scratte. So she had to be beautiful. She had to be smart. All the things that he's not. Scratte is this nervous, twitchy character, not particularly well-groomed. She's elegant and smooth.
He just wanted her to look as beautiful as she could be, because Scratte has to look at her and just fall in love immediately. So we give her long eyelashes with a little bit of blue, like, so we just make her really feminine and funny.
Scratte did start out being a lot more instinctual, and then we started seeing her look. Playing against Scratte actually worked a lot better, and that's where it started to mold her personality. Her movement's really different because she's very straight with her poses. Scratte will pop and just jerk into emotion. She'll do a swirl. The uglier and the more disheveled and pathetic you get Scratte, the funnier he is. But you always have to make sure she's looking as good as possible, and that's where the comedy is, the contrast between the two.
And we kind of thought, what if both Scratte and Scratte have the same goal, the nut? Like, we can create this great fun little kind of like spy versus spy kind of thing that they keep like trying to outsmart each other to catch the nut, and then therefore by doing that they find love. Then the concept came up, the love triangle: Scratte, nut, and girl. Scratte.
The Scratte sequences in general are not scripted. They are all invented in story and with the director. Carlos definitely had the idea of, you know, the Scratte arc, meeting the girl, and a basic idea of what would happen, but as far as every individual sequence, they leave it to us. The first thing we do is the first rough pass. Rough, dirty, awful-looking drawings, and then you pitch them in front of the whole room. You act it out, you do voices, you're really trying to get the room to laugh.
And then falls like a rock.
The Scratte tango sequence, that was my assignment, and I thought, well, okay, they need to be fighting over the nut, it's gotta be fun and funny, and so then the next part was me just trying to just sketch out the choreography, seeing how it would work with their tails, and bringing squirrelness into a human dance. Just weeks of just doing gags. And then Carlos basically just picks his favorites, and the tango was born.
The tango sequence took 33 days, about 5 weeks, because there's a lot of play between who's holding the nut, where it's going, so it takes a great deal of polish time. We looked up on YouTube on how to dance tango, and I think one of the coolest responses was when the storyboard artist noticed that I did a backwards ocho in one of the shots I did. So I actually have very specific tango moves in this, so it's all a collaborative effort that made that sequence extremely painful but extremely rewarding at the same time.
It's one of my favorite sequences in the movie. It just shows like how, you know, how fun and painful love could be. Fun thing about like the original Scratte was thinking, what's going to be the voice for Scratte? So we just put temporary voices just to see.
We needed some sounds, so I connected with my inner Scratte, and the noises just came voluntarily. Mostly it's effort sounds. Scratte, you know, he's surprised by something. It's a kind of a He's getting bopped on the head. It's kind of the same sound, only just a things like that.
He matched so perfectly. We said, oh, why look elsewhere? Like, we got the talent right here. And Chris became like the signature voice of Scratte, and was wonderful. And then when we defined the Scratte girl, I decided, let's look inside again. Let's go through the same process. And Karen Disher, she's been doing a lot of voice temps for us.
I've been doing scratch voices since I started out. So I think when they needed a temp voice for Scratte at the beginning of production, they're like, oh, well, just bring Karen in, which is, for me, like a lot of fun. When you can come into the booth and they're like, okay, you're falling down a cliff. You know, you're being punched in the stomach. You know, it's a funny and weird thing. In terms of vocalizing, it's tricky because Scratte's so great. And Chris Wedge does such an amazing voice. So how do I keep this animal in the same family, but different at the same time? So for me, that was thinking of little sexy kind of things, like little purrs she could do, little come hither squeaks, which is difficult to do. There's big, furry paws to fill in a lot of ways.
Pretty clever. I don't know where she gets it. I just don't.
I was not expecting to end up being the voice in the movie at all. And then John came to me about a year and a half ago now and said, guess what? You're gonna be Scratte. And I was just like, shut up! Like, I couldn't even believe it. So, it's really exciting.
The final ending where you keep the question, is he gonna be with a girl? Or he's gonna get the nut? Or he's gonna get nothing? And we had like 3 different ways of ending the movie, and we chose one that we thought was the best for the Scratte.
The nut always comes first for Scratte. Always, always, always. He can't win at the end, never. And that's the cardinal rule, because that's the Scratte.
We kind of leave Scratte where we pick him up in the beginning. He's always going to have a certain amount of struggle in his life, no matter what happens.